All right, we must start now, right? Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this session on environmental sustainability and through the lenses of digital development. Actually, this session is a continuum of a flash session that we had last year in SEEDIG, which was held in Bucharest, regarding technological development and circular economy. So we decided this year to extend this topic through wider perspective, because as you all know, in the last digital development roadmap, the UN Secretary General has underlined that digital development and climate change actually should go in parallel, and they are not two separated topics. So today we have an excellent panel with us, which represents different stakeholders from our region and from different countries of our region, which will bring here lessons learned, best practices, and they will share their experience in the field of sustainable development as well as digital development. So I'm so happy that today is with us Mr. Valentin Negoita from Ecotech Romania, Konstantin Damov from Green Group Romania, as well as Radovan, if I'm right always with the pronunciation, Radovan Nikcevic from Regional Corporation Council, Dimitru Vasilescu from UNDP Moldova, and Pavel Antonov from Blue Link Bulgaria. Today with me will be my co-moderator is Liana Galsian from the SEEDIG Executive Committee. So first of all, I wanted to invite all our contributors to introduce themselves, starting from Mr. Negoita, and then continuing in the order that we proposed in our previous meeting. And then we will continue with our discussion. And once again, thank you for joining our session. So, Mr. Negoita, the floor is yours. You need just to unmute yourself because you are muted.
That's right.
Thank you.
I am. So, first of all, I wish you and all of us success in this panel. And I'm going to just briefly present or introduce myself. I'm a president of Ecotech, the first collective scheme in the management of electronic and electric waste in Romania. We have been set in 2006, and ever since we have been leading in collection and recycling of electronic waste in Romania. I am also a member of the board of WE Forum, a platform of 41 organizations, similar organizations of Europe and Canada and India. And in this respect, we try to identify and the best practices in management of WEs all across the globe. So much for me for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we want to hear Mr. Damov, right?
Yes. Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to be together with you and debate sustainability and digital actions. I'm in recycling business for more than 25 years. Now I'm the chairman of the largest recycling group in Romania. We have been starting the business in 2002, and we are one of the largest recyclers in Europe for now. We have activities in Romania, Slovakia, Serbia, and Lithuania at the moment. And we recycle PET, electronic, and glass. And in the same time, I'm also in Romania, elected recently the president of Coalition for Circular Economy. So this is a good reason to be here and to share with you some of our experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now it's the turn of Mr. Nikšević, right? If I'm not mistaken, always with the pronunciation.
Exactly. Aliana, you pronounced it very well. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for organizing this panel, which I hope will be very interesting. And also thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to discuss important issues and this nexus between digitalization and environment. As you said, my name is Radovan Nikšević. I'm working as expert on connectivity in the Regional Cooperation Council for 4 years now. I'm working in the area of energy for more than 2 decades, particularly focusing on energy efficiency, renewable energy, sustainable development, also smart solutions in transport sector, etc., etc. In last 4 years in RCC, I'm dealing with all these areas that I just mentioned: transport, energy, environment. I was also dealing with digitalization for 3 years, and talking about RCC, I would also like to say that we are kind of political and cooperation organization for strengthening cooperation in the Western Balkans, focused on 6 Western Balkan economies and cooperating very closely with the European Commission, kind of extended hand of the European Commission, supporting Western Balkan economies on their path towards the accession to joining the European family. So that would be maybe all for now. And sorry if my hair is glowing. I just realized maybe this is because of this virtual background, or maybe because of shampoo I'm using. Okay, anyway, it will be my pleasure to participate in today's discussion.
Thank you very much. I guess this kind of new effect is very much appreciated. We will be glad to hear your perspective, the perspective of RCC in this session, which is really important because it's a really important actor in our region. And now we want to hear a little bit more from UNDP Moldova, and we have Mr. Dimitru Vasilescu, sorry for the mistake. I apologize.
Not a problem. Hi, I'm Dimitru Vasilescu. I'm a policy specialist with the office, UNDP office in Moldova. I have also some relevant experience, let's say, in this topic that we are going to discuss today. I hope I will bring some interesting insights, ideas, but also share some of the experience and views that we have in UNDP in Moldova, but also in the wider Arbeck region. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. We will be glad to hear that. And last but not least, we have Mr. Pavel Antonov from Blue Link Bulgaria, which will bring to us really interesting insight from the policy development perspective. So the floor is yours, Mr. Antonov. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join this panel. I really hope to bring some interesting insight. I am the co-founder and executive editor of Blue Link. It is a civil society-rooted electronic communication network based in Bulgaria, but operating for the last 20 years regionally across Central and Eastern Europe and the Balkans, but also, I would say, in the EU with many of our activities. I'm a journalist myself, but my PhD is in social geography. And basically the focus of our work is into the nexus between information technology and civil society, human rights, and environmental protection. I am also the representative of Blue Link to the Association for Progressive Communications, to which we are a member for almost 20 years now, believe it or not. And in this association globally, I'm one of the persons in charge of a global process looking into information technology and environmental sustainability, which we were doing 10 years ago. And now we have reactivated. So I will be glad to also share some insights from this process and how our region fits into it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Antonov. It will be very valuable for us, and not only for our session, to hear your perspective. So the floor is to my co-moderator, Liana, which has some interesting question for all of you.
Thank you very much, Eliana. I welcome everyone, and thanks for being with us. This is really an impressive panelist, and we are keen to know your insights, as you said. Many of you mentioned the Balkan countries, but SEEDIG is more than Balkan countries. We are actually embracing many countries from Southeastern Europe, and we even call C+, because many countries in the area are involved in SEEDIG region. So basically, I'd like to start with the first question about how can digital transformation support the sustainable development goals in the C+ region. And I would like to give the floor to Dumitru Vasilescu, UNDP Moldova, and we want to know the UN perspective on this issue.
Thank you, Liana. I probably start with congratulating all of us and all the partners and also the participants to this conference with the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. Right, that's very important. I think milestone for all of us. Indeed. I mean, my task is rather difficult. I have to provide some introduction to this discussion, and indeed, it is even more difficult because I'm having colleagues in this panel that are, let's say, that are practitioners and people that are, let's say, testing things and trying things and having very interesting experience. Nevertheless, I will try to maybe start with some initial, let's say, inputs into the discussion. I would like to say that what we are seeing in, let's say, in our region, and this again, this is primarily UNDP perspective and how we see things in this region. I think there are very interesting elements related to this digital transformation, what we call digital revolution. I think that are steering and showcasing good examples of how this transformation is bringing, let's say, or starts to bring some positive change when it comes to combating climate change in our region. And in particular, I think in terms of advancing some regional or even local sustainability, environmental stewardship, and overall sustainable human development. I think when it comes to this nexus of digital transformation and sustainable environment, I think this nexus comes particularly visible in the context of the 2030 development agenda and of the sustainable development goals, right? Because when we try to look into how actually we can use digital and technologies to make our environment and protect the environment, make it more sustainable, I think one of the good ideas is to look at the sustainable development goals and to see actually what are the elements on one hand of the, let's say, of the digital transformation, and on the other hand to see what are the elements of the environmental sustainability and how we can link those two areas. Given the context, indeed, in each and every specific country, location, and so on and so forth. So in terms of like digital transformation, indeed, again, what we are seeing in UNDP, that there are several elements of this transformation in our region. Indeed, we speak about digitalization of the public offer, and there are many examples of digitalization of public services. We speak about new ways of engaging with private sector for sustainable development. There are some examples that we can discuss later on, but there are some examples of SDG accelerator programs, for instance, by UNDP in several locations in our region. We are using technology also and more using new types of data and evidence for decision making, for improving the decision making processes. And indeed, last but not least, we are using specific innovation and innovative tools and technologies to advance this topic in the region. And last but not least, as you all know, this digital transformation is a very important pillar of the UN and UNDP in particular recovery plans. So everywhere, again, in this region, you will see countries that are planning or that are currently strategizing together with UN agencies and UNDP on this digital transformation and particularly in the post-COVID or COVID-19 environment. On the other hand, indeed, we have the so-called environmental sustainability area, in which, let's say, in which we have also specific goals. Let's say that we do. Our ambition is to achieve by 2030, and this environmental sustainability, I think it transcends. It is a cross-cutting thing to all of the SDGs, if not. But in particular for some of the SDGs, indeed, and you can, if we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, indeed, we will see that that in all of the goals there is an attempt at, or there was an attempt at least, and there should be more done in terms of linking the environmental, the social, and the economic dimension of sustainable development. And again, from also in my view, when it comes to achieving of the sustainable development goals, those in particular that are related to the environment, this is there is some positive indeed, some positive achievements in our region. But I think what we are learning more and more is that going forward, we will need maybe 2 or 3 essential things to achieve these targets. One is the general support from the public and the society. It's very important. Indeed, we are talking a lot about technology, but I think also in our region we should be probably talking more and more about human behavior and how people interact with technologies, people interact with other people, and how we interact with the nature. That's one. The second, indeed, there is need for these sustainable goals and the environmental dimension also to be embedded into the effective governance mechanisms. And last but not least, I think a very interesting area also that we are trying more and more to explore in UNDP is engagement with the private sector. There are so many new opportunities and so many interesting things that we are also learning from private sector, and we will be probably learning more and more in the next decade. I will stop here. I'm ready to share some examples and ready to elaborate and discuss with you on some of the topics that I just mentioned. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasilescu. It was good to know the UN perspective and the issues that you raised. I'm sure we will come back with the discussion, but for this moment, maybe we can also see the policy-related issues on the digital transformation. Actually, how can that bring and support the environmental development goals? And does it support, or how can it support? So I'd invite Pavel Antonov to talk a little bit on this part.
Thank you. This is a very broad question, and in fact, I wouldn't be comfortable to cover it in all of its aspects, but there are some aspects to it which I am happy to raise in this discussion, and I would like to follow up on what was mentioned just now about the, let's say, human aspects and the human engagements which determine the way technology works and contributes to environmental sustainability. BlueLink, the network I am representing here, it has a history and roots into the environmental movement. In fact, 20 years ago, it was initiated by active environmental groups who were believing that the information technology and the internet would contribute and would enable them to have a much greater reach and much greater impact, communication and otherwise. So this is where we started from. And I would like to actually share my screen now briefly, because I wanted to illustrate what I'm talking about. Let me see how to do this. I'm pressing now share screen, right? Okay, so something happened.
Yeah, we cannot see that. Your screen.
So you don't see my screen then?
No.
Okay, I have to press share just a second. Okay, so you probably see it now. Okay, so what you're seeing now is just a glimpse of the web page of Bluelink. As I said, it works as a environmental network for civil society, but over the last 20 years, our scope evolved. So we realized we cannot deal, first of all, only with environment. It's important to cover other important issues. And also we realized that technology follows its own rules and regulations, and we need to also be able to engage with these processes and try to combine them. I am showing you now on the screen some of the principles that we have followed using of information technologies strategically to support environmental civil society engagement, in which should uphold democracy, protect nature, and bring environmental sustainability and promote common European values. You will not believe, but this was written 20 years ago in the charter. So I would say this was quite visionary, because now we can see that these processes took much longer. And some of the best practice responses I would like to go through, because this was also among the tasks we had for this round table discussion. As I mentioned, we believe that technology could empower people and could serve to raise their level of engagement and cause their behavioral patterns. So this is the first sort of good practice we've been implementing through the in-networking, but also several other tools. Another, I think, good direction to look at has been the internet aspects of environmental public participation, the ability of people to join the processes using the technology and how this could happen. In this process, we have had over the past decades, to different extents, the support and engagement of national authorities and local authorities. But of course, since our countries, at least some of the countries in our region, have joined the European Union, this is also happening along the European institutions paths. And one particularly interesting example and a venue for policy work is provided to us by a regional policy instrument. Many of you will have heard about it. It is the UNEC's Aarhus Convention, the convention which guarantees the rights of citizens to access environmental information, participate in decision-making, and access to justice. So we realized this convention and some of the related legislation provides a very interesting and useful policy framework for plugging in information technology. So we started looking into how can we make sure that information technology works for the implementation and effectiveness of these instruments. Of course, we continued with policy analysis, and this is my last example. As I mentioned, we started comparing the Aarhus Convention, but as you know, there is a very big policy instrumentarium toolbox in the field of environmental sustainability. So we started looking at all these policies and trying to compare them and see how they could relate to the internet governance processes which take place on a totally different level, and is there any interconnection between this? So this is where we came to the initiative at the Association for Progressive Communications, which is doing this globally and comparing how it works not only in our region and Eastern Europe, but also in other parts of the world. And one or two examples of instruments we were able to put. Of course, it's not even relevant anymore, because we live in a time when technology has developed so much. It has become so accessible in Southeastern Europe, in the country I come from, but also in the rest of our region, that there are many applications and commercially available technology. But some things we managed to do was develop e-platforms which allow citizens and their organizations to transparently exchange information, decide, make a vote, access the information needed. And one such tool I would like to showcase here is a tool we put together which allows people to seek legal support in order to defend their environmental rights, and also to access journalists and civil society support. This was considered quite successful and actually got replicated in some countries in Southeastern Europe, such as Albania, most recently. So if I have to conclude at this stage, our major purpose at the moment and our primary target is to make sure that technology does not get isolated from the challenges and issues in societies, including environment protection, that it contributes to it. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to stop sharing my screen now. I'm not sure if you can help me for this.
Maybe you can
just a button. Yeah, do that.
Okay. Oh, thank you. And so this is where I am very excited to sort of participate in the discussion in this roundtable, where we have much more knowledge around the table on the actual technological aspects, e-waste and so on, and see how we can connect the social processes and policy dynamics to all these developments. And back to you at this stage.
Thank you so much for your perspective. I'm happy to hear that in my country, it seems that some of your best practices have been or are being implemented. I will check for it later on because I didn't know. As our panel is very diverse, I wanted now to address to Mr. Negoita and Mr. Damov, actually to ask to them how, because I'm actually inspired from the last intervention of Mr. Negoita in the chat, which has given a very interesting definition of sustainable development, which is development based on green technologies and new business model, compliant with environment criteria. So I wanted to hear a little bit more how this can cope with digital development, how actually sustainable development can cope with sustainable development, but from a perspective of focusing on green technologies and on new business models. And I'm sure you can share really your best practices as practitioners on the field. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
We are two in this, let's say, reply. I don't know if we go for the sing-along or just one and apart. Probably it's better to express our visions, or better to say views separately. I would just complement the former question, which was put to all of us probably, about the digitalization and the digital transformation. And I would say that in Romania, it's in progress, but the pace is quite slow, I should say. And I would say that only some sectors are in the forefront of digitalization, of integrating digital technologies in their operations, daily business. And they are ICT for sure, which represents something like 7% of the GDP in Romania, retail, banking, and telecom. For the rest, we still wait to happen, to see the light at the end of the tunnel sometime soon. But let's say the pace is not exactly what we would like to be. So that was just an add-on for the former question. As for let's say digitalization for sustainability, this is let's say a horizon which we have in mind. It's happening, but at a smaller pace if we compare to integration of digital technologies in the economy and society, because the old business models are still there, and consumption is still the number one, let's say, cultural component of our lives. So both producers and consumers are on the same front, and if let's say the consumption models do not change and the business models to go along, we cannot see, let's say, the light at the end of the tunnel too soon, because it takes more than policies. It takes, let's say, a mindset change at the end of the day. I will stop here just to let and invite Konstantin Damov to add a little bit of his own vision for that, and then we'll come back.
Okay, thank you. Here you have been asking about sustainability, and instead of writing the answer, I will speak about that. I think sustainability, it is a responsibility of current generation not to alterate the environmental condition and permit to have the same chance for future generation with regard to access of resources and quality of environment. So I think sustainability, it is a responsibility of our generation for future generation. And when I'm saying this, we know that sustainability, it refers to environment, it refers to social and to economic. There are three pillars which are the base of sustainability. Now I will go back to what I'm doing on my daily work, and I can tell you that part of sustainability is also the waste management. I'm doing this for many years, and I'll try not to be very technical in my description of action, but I will say that today we need to create a matrix of sustainability where all the influential factors can be measured. In reality, we are talking about principles, direction, but we don't have enough measurement. If you don't measure your action, you don't know where we are. And I will give you digitalization in our country, in Romania. It is something it must immediately put into practice. Romania, as any other European country, is giving annual reports on waste management. And guess what? Eurostat is having our latest information are 2018, which means for us to update the results of an activity that is putting together the action of industries, individuals, municipalities, industries for recycling, in order to collect all data and to create an information. We are just collecting papers, old style, and finally we have a very, disputable figure at the end. based more on statistics and reporting by one or the other. You know, there was a joke I heard from a British friend. There are small lies, big lies, and statistics. I think the only one can fight with this situation is the digitization, because once we are collecting data from all the actors, is what we really need to have a measurement in the real time. In order to act and correct and to measure your impact for the environment, you really need to press a button and to have the situation in real time. Otherwise, all policies and all intervention may be sometimes very wrong, or you spend a lot of energy in direction that you don't go anywhere. I will give you an example. For the waste collection, we have been doing one of our companies here, developing software. We have been making a digitization of collection of the waste from the municipal residences, from private residents. So every bin is having an RFID, and then you have a number, and everybody is signing for it. When the truck is coming, it's weighing the bin, it's identifying, it's a bin of Valentin Negoiță, he has a contract, it's weighing full and empty, and immediately he will get, in the next second, he will get the invoice on his telephone and he can pay it. What is happening today? Actually, everybody is paying a flat fee, nobody knows how much is collecting, and the principle, which is separating people that they are working more to be more sustainable, they are not receiving any incentive in comparison with those which they are putting all together. What I'm saying here, that if I'm separating my waste and giving for recycling 90%, and I'm putting 1 kilo in my bin, I will today I'm taxed with the same amount like the one producing 100 kilos every day of mixed waste. So the principle here that polluter pays is not applied. And why? Because we don't have a measurement. So digitization in Romania and everywhere is really creating those data that you can evaluate the impact of individual, of a company, of a municipality, of an industry, and so on. So we badly need that at every level and the full surface of Romania to have a mapping with those points where we are measuring the impact of, I was saying here, waste management, but can be anything else, which is a measure for sustainability, like energy efficiency, emissions, transportation, all other things. So for that, we really need to establish a point of measurement, and then to collect data, and then you can take decision, you can make policies, you can make steps forward. I will say that without digitalization, we are stuck and we cannot make any step forward towards sustainability, a real sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, especially for your last message, which can be an excellent bridge for our last intervention, which is the intervention of Mr. Nikšević. He can bring maybe some insights from RCC, which is an important actor for the region of the Balkans, not for the all SEE plus countries, but at least for the smaller SEE country region of SEE countries. So maybe Mr. Nikšević, if you are here still with us.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I'm here.
So you can maybe bring your perspective and the perspective of this important actor of our region on sustainability and digital development. So if these two concepts go in parallel, or actually if we don't have digital development, we cannot really have sustainability at the end of the day, such as Mr. Damov concluded in his intervention.
Okay, thank you very much, Oliana, for giving me the floor. Yes, you are very right when you said that our activities in Regional Cooperation Council are focused only on Western Balkan 6 economies. It differs a bit comparing with the area of intervention of SEEDIG. But anyway, let me first come back to the first question about the links between digitalization and sustainable development goals. And when I was preparing for this session, I reviewed quickly all 17 sustainable development goals and somehow realized that actually we all, the global community has committed even 5 years ago to these 17 sustainable development goals, but they barely mentioned digitalization. Maybe it shows how digitalization was important only five years ago. However, the big shift in paradigm happened in these 5 years, and today digitalization is really happening and its pace is really fast, it's ubiquitous, and digitalization transforms our lives entirely. It transforms all parts of our society and profoundly, really profoundly shape and support the achievement of all 17 SDGs. I would emphasize all 17 goals because, and I would here agree with what Pavel said earlier in his intervention, that this is really, really broad question. And when we are talking about SDGs, we can find myriad examples on how digitalization can support each and every of these sustainable development goals. But in my intervention, I will pick up one of them and focus on it just to make our discussion more focused, because we do not have time to discuss all of them. Anyway, digitalization is an indispensable part of our life. It's kind of a main driver of economic development today and has the power to accelerate even exponentially the economic growth and enhance social well-being. Digital transformation is kind of most significant transformational processes for societies and economies worldwide. And as such, it's dramatically affecting our lives, both positively and negatively. And also, impact of digitalization on environment can be positive and negative. And this is maybe one new perspective which I would like to bring to today's discussion. Also, we have to bear in mind these negative effects of digitalization on environment. And here I'm talking first about increased needs for energy, increased generation of waste, particularly again talking about electronic and electrical equipment waste, etc., etc. But my message today is that really we have, when talking about digitalization, we have to make sure that this process is sustainable itself. And now I will come back to sustainable development goals, and I said I will pick up one of them, and I will focus here on SDG number 13. It is climate action. And I would just like to mention that we in RCC recently commissioned a study which analyzed these interlinkages between environment and digitalization. And this study also listed and quoted many studies and many other papers developed in the European Union and in the Western Balkans, which somehow dealt with these important issues. And one of the papers published, I think 7 or 8 years ago, published by famous consulting firm McKinsey, estimated that use of digital equipment can decrease CO2 emission by 2020 for 15%, which is direct, which can have direct impact on mitigating climate change. And of course, when we are talking about other SDGs, we can list millions and millions examples. But when talking about digital transformation, we no doubt about many positive effects it brings. But behind the digital world we see, and which usually makes us very happy by offering us this opportunity to use mobile phones, to be in contact with our friends and relatives, which offer us laptops, to use various music play devices, which are wirelessly connected to each other, and many other devices which improve our quality of life. We always have to have in mind that behind this word we see lies a dirty circle of exploitation of natural resources. When I say natural resources, primarily I mean minerals, metals, raw materials, water. Then another important point is that it requires, operation of this digital world requires a huge amount of ever-increasing energy consumption. And we need energy for production of digital equipment, for packaging, for transportation, distribution, then again, transportation from shops to our homes. And then most important period is period of use, when energy actually is consumed by these devices, and for disposal. And third element, which is important, is pollution. We always have to keep in mind that this, not to go with and not to come into trap of overconsumption of digital devices, because all these equipment use of this equipment actually cause pollution. We have increased waste generation, particularly talking about electronic and electrical equipment waste. Sometimes these equipment contain some dangerous or hazardous chemical substances, etc., which pollute our soil, water, air, etc. So these are three main. Get some background noise, I think. So these are three main negative consequences of digitalization, and this is well elaborated in our study, which also show that if we continue to follow these examples, we will have about 7% increase in electricity need per year. This will also cause increased generation of waste in our region. And I would stop here. Maybe it would be good to, after the meeting, we can actually, when we agree, we can share the link for our study, which contains really interesting information and figures about the energy needs and waste generation in the Western Balkans. So that I would stop here. That would be everything from myself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nikčević. This was really, we tackled a lot of big issues here: the pollution, environment, sustainability, digitalization. This is really big issues. And I'm so sorry that we do not have time to address all of this and pick up all of these things. That is so important. But what I particularly want to bring up a little bit on discussion is the responsibility of everyone, on all stakeholders. You mentioned about the responsibility of everyone, that is a citizen, etc. So what the resources that we get and we need to give to the next generation and to everyone to continue it. So basically about the sustainability thing. But I want to raise the issue of responsibility on a perspective of stakeholders. So who has the main role in this issue, and how to do best that all the stakeholders who are involved in these things to have a dialogue, to have a good connection with us, so that the digitalization and the technologies that come up is quickly taken into action from all the others and taken seriously. So how to involve all stakeholders into this discussion of sustainable goals. I'm addressing to our panelists, and who wants to take that question?
I would love to start because, I and my colleague Konstantin Damov are on the same front in saving the natural resources from the industry side. We are both in the coalition for circular economy in Romania, and probably my colleague will continue my short ideas. The thing is that responsibility is on our shoulders, first of all. I mean, everybody should mind the business he's in or the activity he's in, and try to limit, let's say, the waste, be it household waste or electronic waste, batteries and whatsoever. And make a admit, after all, let's say, responsibility is, let's say, one good feeling and mental decision, but commitment comes immediately after responsibility. So we should all, after all, be committed to our goals, to a sustainable planet, to a sustainable society, first of all, in all our countries. And there we need, of course, dialogue. And this kind of dialogue we are, let's say, having in several meetings which we hold in our circular economy coalition, and try to find, let's say, common denominators and positions for the Ministry of Environment, but also for some other authorities, including the public. And our, let's say, visions are, let's say, ventilated, or better to say, conveyed to the greater public after we try to finely tune them. So I would invite, if you don't mind, Konstantin Damov to get along with some of these ideas, if you don't mind.
Well,
but I would ask to keep it very short, because we are really running out of time, and also we have Pavel Antonov wanting to speak up.
Sure, very short.
Yes,
we are speaking about re-education of all stakeholders today. And I think one way forward, it is a circular economy. And we will not talk anymore about waste management, but we'll talk about the resource management. And for that, everyone, starting with the producer, distributors, users, and authorities, everybody should implement with strength this direction, so no waste will be generated and resources will be ever used. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. And Pavel Antonov, you also want...
Thank you. I wanted to make a brief response to your question. Most important stakeholders, and in order to do this, I would like to sort of start from the intervention of Radovan Nikčević, which I found particularly impressive. In fact, if we look at the reasons to have the sustainability goals, the reasons are underlying the economic models and the social models across the world, and of course in our region. And this is why these goals are there, so that we resolve the driving forces which create the problems. And the big question, what is ahead of us, is how information technology could contribute to the resolving of each of these problems. Because if you notice the scope of our conversation so far, the most of the issues we are discussing are related to the side effects of technology, whether it is emitting, generating more waste, whether it is consuming more power and so on. But in fact, what we need to be looking at is the core purpose of this technology, and whether this technology and what we refer to as digitalization in societies and in the global economy actually makes them greener or not. And I'm sorry to sound maybe a bit pessimistic in this one, but I don't think at the moment we have a guarantee that this is the case. There is this very general notion that green economy somehow equals smart economy. So by default, we expect that once we go digital, that somehow makes things greener. It's not the case. Our societies are unsustainable. We have overconsumption patterns. We have inequality patterns, bad governance, and so on. And what is the challenge? And I think it has to come sort of clearly as a message, of course, not only from this event, but in the future from our work, is that we need to ensure technology in its core purpose brings the sustainable development goals together. And I'm very keen to continue this work. I'm very much looking to see the report of Mr. Nikčević, and this is the direction we also want to keep working. So the answer to your question, in my view, is government. Governments on a national and supranational level are the stakeholders who are supposed to make sure taking in place all these considerations and the interests of the people and the business, and to make sure that we move into this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonov, for your intervention, and for your last message is very powerful. So we understand that the government is one of the actors or the stakeholders that has the most important role, not only in our region, I think, but in every country of the world, but more specifically in our extended region. So I would love to thank all the participants for their interventions. We were really challenged by the online time. You understand that the format this year doesn't allow us very much to have a lot of interaction because we ran out of the time. We had only 45 minutes and we extended it a little bit in 1 hour. We would have loved to talk and to hear more from you. And as we all know, now we see that sustainable development and digital development should go together. And I think without digital development, there is not sustainability, and as well sustainability in an era of digitalization cannot be defined without digital development. So I would really appreciate if Radovan can share with us the results of his report, because we are all involved in this topic. And once again, thank you for your intervention. And now my colleague Liana has a few notes on the report of our session and on the messages of this session according to the SEEDIG principles. Thank you so much once again. And sorry for the time management, but as we all understood from this pandemic, it is really a challenge for all of us to learn on how to be effective online. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana. And I also join with this thankful words to all our panelists. This is indeed a big issue that we wanted and we tackled for the first time in our environment in SEEDIG. The issues also should be discussed at the global IGF level. So who has this interest in the topic, I want also to come to and participate to global IGF. As Liana already mentioned, we do have a principle of creating messages, takeaway from the discussion and all sessions. And we do have a rapporteur who I want to invite, Bianca Butatu, to read the messages of our session. And afterwards, we have another announcement. So Bianca, please read the messages and we'll go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana. Okay, can you see the slide?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Thank you. So the main messages are the following. Digital development can boost local sustainability, public services, the decision-making process, and the relationship with the public sector. The SDGs are a great example for linking the environmental, social, and economic dimensions of sustainability. Environmental sustainability is not possible without the support of our communities, the engagement of the private sector, good regulations, and without the implementation of the SDGs by all the stakeholders. The traditional business models and consumption behavior are slowing down the digital development and the path towards environmental sustainability. Data plays a crucial role in sustainability. Thus, all aspects of sustainability needs to be measured and analyzed. And lastly, we should not overlook the fact that digital development has both a positive and negative impact on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bianca. This was the key takeaways for this moment at the sessions. And once again, thanks to our panelists.